Fire erupts in the southern Chinese city of Guangzhou. The blaze engulfs a four-story factory before firefighters manage to extinguish it. It's still unclear what sparked it. A port city in China claims over 10 million residents all tested negative for the virus. But Taiwan's health minister says those results are near impossible. Failing to seek justice through the legal system, some Chinese citizens appear to be finding new ways to vent their anger toward authorities. Beijing warned the U.S. it may detain Americans in China. That's in response to the Justice Department's prosecution of Chinese military-affiliated scholars. And a controversial pathway to immigration has been officially closed. Chinese tycoons and communist regime officials had used it to migrate to Europe. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. First, we look to a fire which ignited in southern Chinese city of Guangzhou. In the early hours of Monday morning, a four-story factory in the city's Huadu district caught on fire. This, according to local media. Hours later, the flame was extinguished. The cause of the accident is still under investigation. Local media reported 0 casualties. We cannot verify the figure independently. Now we turn to the CCP, or Chinese Communist Party, virus situation in Qingdao. The city's mass testing results have come under scrutiny. Authorities have tested over 10 million residents within 5 days. They claim that all of them have come back negative. Speaking at a press conference, Taiwan's health minister questioned whether Chinese authorities are telling the truth.
Frankly speaking, it's quite remarkable to see they all tested negative, but results like these are impossible.
Chen oversees Taiwan's pandemic response. He explained that normal mass testing results would bring back a mix of false positives and false negatives. That's because the accuracy rate isn't 100%. Qingdao is located in China's eastern Shandong province. Health authorities there have a history of underreporting cases, notably back in February. That's according to internal documents obtained by NTD. On February 18th, 52 patients in Shandong tested positive. But the province's CDC only reported 1 new case. And on February 21st, 59 new cases were diagnosed. The agency reported 2 of them. In an interview with Hong Kong newspaper Apple Daily, a Hong Kong political commentator cast doubts on Qingdao's mass testing results. He suggested local authorities reported all negative results in an effort to prevent damaging Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping's political image. Xi oversees China's pandemic response. Under the regime's political system, a low number of virus infections would likely be seen as a political achievement. And any spikes in infection rates would undermine the achievement. The expert asserted that local authorities probably don't dare to reveal the true scale of the virus. Now we look to the issue of food storage in China. After enduring the virus, severe flooding, drought, and locust plagues, concerns are rising about the country's grain production. On Friday, state-run media outlet The Discipline Monitor published an article detailing the country's grain management situation in recent years, focusing on those that involved corrupt officials. Such cases appeared every year like clockwork across the country and in all levels of agriculture bureaus. The main corruption practices include creating fake transactions that don't actually exist, artificially raising the weight of the grain being sold to warehouses. That way, the seller makes a bigger profit off of less product, and keeping profits from selling grain from warehouses for themselves while reporting losses or shortages. So why do the same corrupt techniques succeed over and over? According to the report, one deputy secretary's comment from the Qingshan County Commission for Discipline Inspection in Sichuan Province may hold the answer. The secretary admitted that many supervision department officials simply turn their heads the other way, defeating the purpose of the entire department. A grain warehouse manager from the same county explained the Grain Bureau officials just walk around and glance at documents. The problems haven't been addressed for many years. Yiguo Fresh Food e-commerce has filed for bankruptcy. This was announced by the company last week, marking it as the first case of bankruptcy among the big fresh food e-commerce platforms in China. The company is $343 million in debt. Yiguo Fresh e-commerce was established in 2005 and was the first company of its kind in China, providing fresh food to middle and high-end families. Its investors include Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba, holding an almost 40% stake in the company. Already last year, Yiguo laid off its employees and suffered from financial constraints. Yiguo and other fresh food e-commerce companies in China were hit hard by the CCP virus outbreak, as consumption of imported meat, fish, and seafood plummeted. Some Chinese citizens appear to be embracing a new tactic for showing their discontent toward the Chinese regime. They've been spotted taking out their frustrations on signs outside government buildings. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
In one video circulating online, an elderly woman is seen striking a government building sign in Wuhan after attempting to tear it down. In another, a man was spotted tossing a sign onto the ground. The video's caption explains he's a Chinese military veteran and that the sign belongs to the local Ministry of Veteran Affairs. And in July, a woman allegedly used an axe to remove part of a Wuhan government building sign. That's based on a comment from a Chinese netizen posted along with a photo of the damaged sign. Some see these cases as a sign of rising discontent toward the ruling Communist Party. Many internet users have applauded their actions. One user said, "The ruling party suppresses Chinese citizens, and the people hate it to its core." NTD can't independently verify these videos. No additional information is available, including about the video of the military veteran. But in China, veterans' protests remain a long-running issue. China has over 57 million military veterans, and that number is growing by hundreds of thousands every year. But soldiers don't often receive the pensions or jobs promised after they retire from military service. One veteran in China's Shanxi province said many veterans he knows suffer through miserable conditions.
Many veterans struggle to make a living. They don't have jobs, but the local authorities don't provide any help. They also don't allow them to go petition in Beijing.
Petitioning in Beijing is a common avenue for Chinese citizens to seek justice. But defending human rights in China's legal system is often an uphill battle. So petitioners attempt to communicate their complaints to higher-level officials in Beijing. But such efforts often end up in vain, as local authorities try to stop them from going. Up until 2018, China didn't have a state agency handling veteran affairs. Beijing only decided to set one up following large-scale protests. But veterans complain the agency doesn't provide substantial hope, and protests continue to erupt. In response, Chinese authorities ramped up their efforts to silence the discontent. Last year, more than 36 veterans were sentenced to years in jail for protesting for better welfare. The authorities say they disrupted social order to further their own interest. Juliet Song, NTD News.
Prominent pro-democracy Hong Kong protester Grandma Wong is speaking out. It's the first time since she was detained by Chinese authorities for over a year and blocked from returning home. She says she nearly died in mainland China.
A Hong Kong protester dubbed Grandma Wong is condemning Chinese authorities' treatment of her. She's accusing them of preventing her from going home for over a year. A 64-year-old Alexandra Wong said on Saturday she suffered mental abuse while in custody at China's border in Shenzhen. Grandma Wong has been a familiar face at pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, often waving a large British flag, but she disappeared around August last year. Activists and human rights groups have since expressed concern over her whereabouts.
I am afraid I will be stopped to come back Hong Kong. Every second I frightened. I scare every day I scared to hear the phone call.
The Chinese city of Shenzhen is located just north of Hong Kong. Like Wang, many Hong Kongers live there. Wang said that the police asked her who she fought with in Hong Kong and whether she saw protesters using violence. One officer said that she was endangering national security by publicly waving the British flag. Police also pushed her to write a letter of remorse and shoot a video showing loyalty and patriotism for mainland China. She was forced to promise that she would stop participating in Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement. Likewise, she had to promise to refuse all media interviews in the future. Wang has experienced spikes in her blood pressure following her time in custody. Wang said that in the detention center, a total of 16 women were kept in a cell measuring about 150 square feet. She explained that authorities fingerprinted them and took their blood samples. She said she almost died in China. At the end of September 2019, Wang was released in parole, but she was blocked from going home. She said that she was sent to China's Shanxi province for a 5-day tour. Then she received what authorities call patriotic education. Wang described being asked to take pictures while smiling and holding China's national flag. She was made to sing the country's national anthem and watch performances of it. She was also forced to watch the film My Motherland and Me, a movie praising the so-called achievements of the Chinese Communist Party, involving its takeover of Hong Kong over 20 years ago. After she was released on bail, she was still not allowed to leave China for a year. Instead, authorities kept her under surveillance. That's until she returned to Hong Kong in early October. She said that prior to her return, she cried every day and repeatedly expressed her wish to return to Hong Kong for medical treatment, but added that authorities paid no attention to her plight. Wang maintains that she never committed a crime.
I have never known what crimes I committed. I did not participate in the demonstrations in mainland China, and I never joined any political groups in my entire life.
She's now calling for the release of the 12 Hong Kong activists who were intercepted at sea in August. They too have been detained in Shenzhen since then. She expressed concerns that they may face worse treatment than she did. NTD News.
Now we turn to the rising diplomatic tensions between China and Taiwan. Chinese authorities appear to be threatening Taiwan with a potential military invasion. Sparking the speculation is an opinion piece published in the state-run newspaper People's Daily. As the Chinese Communist Party's official newspaper, it often represents authority stances on various issues. What's unusual about this opinion piece is that it included a rare diplomatic phrase that means, "Don't say I didn't warn you." Many see the phrase as one of Beijing's most severe diplomatic warnings. Historically, state media has repeatedly published this specific phrase before China went to war with other countries. For example, it was used before China's wars with India, Vietnam, and the Soviet Union. The article comes amid rising military tensions between China and Taiwan. A report from the South China Morning Post says Beijing has been upgraded its missile bases on the country's southeastern coast. It's also deployed an elite hypersonic missile to the region. Last week, while touring a military base in Guangzhou City, Communist Party head Xi Jinping told Chinese troopers to put their minds and energy toward preparing for war. That military base is seen as a critical front for conflicts with Taiwan. 2 days after he left, local authorities published a list of recommendations for emergency kits. The move sparked speculation about whether authorities are hinting at a potential war. Taiwan and China's foreign ministries are trading blows after a Taiwanese diplomat ended up hospitalized. Taiwan said one of their diplomats in Fiji was assaulted by Chinese officials who tried to crash a reception held by Taiwan's diplomatic mission. Violence ensued, ending with a diplomat in the hospital with a head injury. The reception was in celebration of Taiwan's 109th National Day. Taiwan's foreign ministry said in a statement it strongly condemns the violence against its diplomat in Fiji, adding as a sovereign state it will not be intimidated but will continue to celebrate Taiwan National Day everywhere, every year. China's foreign ministry denied the allegations, claiming Taiwan started the fight. Fiji's foreign ministry has not issued a statement. Beijing claims Taiwan as its own territory and has ramped up pressure on Taipei to accept Chinese sovereignty, including sending fighter jets near the democratically run island. The Pacific is a major source of competition between the two, where Taiwan has formal diplomatic relations with 4 countries, though not Fiji. Taiwan does have an established representative office in Fiji dating back to 1971. The Chinese regime on Wednesday warning Washington it may detain Americans in China. That's in response to the Justice Department's prosecution of Chinese military-affiliated scholars. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. China's foreign ministry spokesman responded on Monday, denying the report. The State Department issuing a travel advisory in September, warning Americans to reconsider going to China or risk arbitrary detention or exit bans by the communist regime. It's ways in which Beijing uses to gain bargaining leverage over foreign governments. The Trump administration has ramped up scrutiny of the Chinese regime. It accuses China of stealing U.S. tech, military, and other strategy, an effort to displace the U.S. as the world's leading financial and military power. Beijing denies the allegations. The FBI issued a report in August this year detailing how China has cost the U.S. $200 to $600 billion in stolen trade secrets, counterfeit goods, and pirated software. The U.S. last month revoked the visas of over 1,000 Chinese nationals, citing security concerns. China called the move an affront to human rights. And in July, the FBI arrested 3 Chinese nationals on grounds of hiding their ties to the Chinese military. That's according to the Justice Department. The Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, is asking the Justice Department to detail if a Chinese telecoms firm poses a security risk to the U.S. The FCC asked in a letter if and how China Unicom is subject to exploitation, influence, and control of the Chinese government and the national security and law enforcement risks associated with this. The FCC asked for a response by November 16th. This comes after the FCC issued showcase orders in April, threatening to shut down U.S. operations of 3 state-controlled Chinese telecoms companies. The 3 are China Telecom, China Unicom, and Pacific Networks Corp., including its subsidiary, ComNet. China Unicom said in a June 1st filing it has a 2-decade track record as a valuable contributor to U.S. telecommunications markets. The FCC voted unanimously in May 2019 to deny China's state-owned company China Mobile from providing U.S. services, citing U.S. security concerns. And a controversial pathway to immigration has been officially closed. A passport for sale scandal in Cyprus, an island country in South Europe, put an end to the practice. Chinese tycoons and communist regime officials had used it to migrate to Europe.
The Eastern Mediterranean country Cyprus has announced the suspension of a golden passport scheme to sell citizenship to wealthy investors. According to documents leaked this August called the Cyprus Papers, around 500 Chinese tycoons and CCP officials have obtained the golden passports during 2017 to 2019. That's over 35% of the total number of these passports issued during that period. The program of this EU member country requires a $2.5 million investment into the country in order to gain Cyprus citizenship. People who get a Cyprus passport are granted easy access to all nations of the European Union. Thus, Cyprus can be a transition to other wealthier countries. But the program became questionable because some people without a clean record still managed to get Cyprus citizenship. For example, some of those 500 Chinese were found to have criminal records. That poses a threat to other EU countries. Cyprus's government tweeted last week that the Golden Passport scheme will be abolished from November 1st because the program has some loopholes and has been abused. The decision was made one day after the release of an investigative report from the Arabic news network Al Jazeera. The report reveals that former president of the House of Representatives in Cyprus and a House member were willing to assist high-risk persons with criminal records to obtain a golden passport. A reporter from Al Jazeera posed as a Chinese businessman who had supposedly been found guilty of money laundering. According to Cyprus law, he would not be qualified for the Golden Passport. However, the Cyprus House member guaranteed to get him one as long as he invested enough in the country. After the report went public, the European Union was shocked and requested the government of Cyprus to investigate the case thoroughly. The European Commission had warned Cyprus in an early 2019 report that the Golden Passport scheme could help organized crime to infiltrate Europe and increase the risk of money laundering, corruption, and tax evasion. As early as 2010, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, or CAS, researched the number of CCP officials that had fled from China. The data revealed the number had reached 18,000 at that time, and they took with them $120 billion. That's an average of over $6.5 million per person. It's thought CCP officials take advantage of schemes such as the Golden Passport and other similar programs to gain citizenship in other countries.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.